All right, so we're going to get started, guys. So tonight we are doing a presentation on telling your story through art. So it's telling your story through like your art and your portfolio and your support material. So this is just the next installment in the series for um, the NB Disability Art Collective. And we just want to thank Arts NB for their support of this work, because without them, we wouldn't be doing this work. So I see Josie's joined us. Hi, I'll let you know. We're recording this, so if you want to meet yourself, um, that would be cool. Um, and if you guys we will have time in between topics to stop if we have questions. Like I'll stop and take questions, and then you can feel free to unmute yourselves, and then when we move on, we'll unmute ourselves. So I'm going to get started. So your portfolio is another way of telling the story of you, the story of your art practice, and like showing the work that you're passionate about. So it's really important. I think it's a really important topic to kind of broach because it's so much more than just a collection of archival pieces that you've done. Um, so your portfolio is a blended extension of it's kind of an extension of your artist bio and your artist statement. So the work in your portfolio is both what you do and speaks to who you are as an artist. Um, so I find like thinking about your portfolio and your promotional material, proposals, and presentations as narrative is extremely helpful, especially when like you're putting things together. It's a really nice kind of headspace to be in. It really helps get a concise, overarching feeling when you're putting things together for like a festival or a grant, or even just like your portfolio to show to others. Um, so all of this is a way to tell our story. So I'm going to talk about things to consider when putting together a portfolio or support material. So the first thing I really think is just extremely important. I can't think of a bigger word I want to use, but extremely important. Um, think about your audience. We talked about this in previous presentations with our art writing, so our artist bio and our artist statement. Who are you sending this to? That's going to change kind of the context of what you share, right? It's going to be different, just contextually who you're sending it to. So make sure that the work you're sending is relevant to your audience, so that you can connect with your audience a lot more easily. It can be confusing sometimes if you're sending stuff that doesn't have anything to do with that particular audience. So it's good to make sure that things go over well. Um, Another good thing you can do is look at previous artists who've been successful in art opportunities that you're applying for, um, because that can give you clues to what a program might be looking for. So it can help you kind of contextualize like what the audience, like a jury or the people who run the program, are looking for in an artist or musician or any discipline, for whatever opportunity you're looking at. So you can look at previous people who have been granted, um, or previous artists in residence. And there's that way you can kind of look at what they've done and go, oh, okay, maybe they're looking for something specifically in this vein. Um, so if the opportunity offers group feedback, like Arts and B grants, you can check that out online to give yourself more clues on what to apply with. So Um, I believe since October last year, Arts and B doesn't give individualized feedback. They give group feedback. So what I mean by that is they publish feedback for the group of applicants in each grant period, and um, they publish general feedback, which is great because you can find out what everyone did well, what everyone might have struggled with, and it can give you an idea of like, hey, I should do this differently. Um, so that does help. And then consider that you may need to include a video that demonstrates a piece, like an installation. I know I had done an installation called Touching Music. So it's a felt board with felt appliques, felt pieces that you put onto the board to compose music with felt. Um, I found a lot what feedback that I had gotten on that project when I had applied to take it to a couple of festivals. They had been very confused by what it was, and I found it easier to demonstrate the project than to just tell them it's a felt board and you put felt pieces on it. And the felt pieces are music. Um, but it's sometimes it's a little hard to explain things, so it's easier to show them. Um, do you guys have any questions? We're thinking about audience. We're thinking about how we're presenting things to people in the context that we want to show them. Uh, do we have any questions on that? Okay. Um, if we don't have questions, I'm going to move on. Um, so the next thing to think about too is what are you sending? Um, please make it make sense. um, I say that because I am one of the people that has to make it make sense because I've had times where I've sent things that to me it connected, but to other people it was not apparent why those things connected. Um, so make sure that the work you're sending is relevant to your proposal. So like when you're writing a proposal, um, if your proposal is about doing watercolor, uh, don't send self sculpture. Um, I mention this because a lot of us are multidisciplinary and we're super proud of our work. And it can be really easy to send stuff that we, a lot of times in art school, I know when I went to art school, I was told you want to show how versatile you are. Um, that's good. Um, but when it comes to proposals, you want to show that you're the right person to do the work you're proposing. So we want to make sure that all the pieces have that thread of what's in your proposal and that they connect to that because it's not about how versatile you are, but about whether or not you can do the work that you've set out to do in your proposal because that's what people are looking for. They're looking for someone who is the best fit for what they're saying. And our support material, the things that we're sending, is what tells them how we're going to do that. And they can look at it and feel confident when they pick us. Um, so if you're multidisciplinary, what I've tried to do is I've tried to work in series. So I've tried to um, do multiple pieces of the same kind um, and then move on. If I want to move on to other mediums, then I try to move on to a new series. Because it can be easy to just do things willy-nilly. Because art is so fun, we love doing it, but um, it's easier to show a body of work when you have. I found it's easier to show a body of work in a proposal when you have more of that piece. It's harder when you kind of bounce all around. So this is something that I've kind of taken to planning my own practice to help myself out. Um, and then consider what you're trying to accomplish in your proposal and think about what examples you can give to show that you're able to carry out the work. So like we talked about, don't send soap sculpture if you are going to be doing a watercolor project. Um, yeah, like think about, you know, what best supports what you're saying. Um, and yeah, so are there any questions about kind of how we're contextualizing our portfolios or like how like what you're sending? Does anyone have anything come to mind?
Yes, Jessica, just a clarification
Yeah.
about, what you said. Just a second here. Okay, so what you're saying is that for each proposal, you should have a body of work that represents the proposal that you're trying to send to them for the project.
Yeah, we want to connect it. So, you don't have to specifically make it for the proposal. This is just work that you have done. Um,
Hmm.
but um, if you're doing a proposal, you want to try to have stuff that connects to what you're doing because what you're showing these people who are in a jury or the people who are running a program that are just looking at applications and stuff is that you're showing that the work that you have and they can go, wow, that looks really nice, and then they read your portfolio and they're like, wow, that sounds really cool. They read your proposal, and then they can go like, hey, we think this person is a good fit for what we want to accomplish with this funding, and then they might fund you, right?
Right.
And so that way it all has like kind of a through line with it. I know for me, like I work in a lot of different things. So I play music, I write poetry, I do visual arts, sometimes I do sculpture. Uh, so it can be hard. Like if I want to do a visual art proposal, it can be hard because I don't sometimes have as much visual artwork because I've been focusing in other areas. So it's good to think about kind of try to do like 3 to 5 pieces is what I found. Like if you've got a theme, if you're like, "Oh, I want to do something about butterflies," or maybe you want to do something about the environment, you could take 3 to 5 pieces and go, "This is the theme, and I'm going to work in textile, or I'm going to work in pencil crayons." um, Whatever works. And that
Right.
way
So,
it helps you build a little bit. I know it's weird to think about because sometimes art is so spontaneous. Um, but I find it easier if we can kind of think in that way. Not necessarily like every piece is, hey, I'm gonna do a proposal, so I have to plan this. But think in series because in the long run, it helps us show our work better. Because it also is easier to send to galleries and things like that, so that you have kind of a smaller body of work that you can send and go, here's a series. Um, and it makes it a little easier. Does that make sense?
yes, I just had another question. Like,
Yeah,
let's
absolutely.
say it's something that you've come up with. You want to do it. It's totally something you haven't done before.
Hmm.
So you're saying that you should have, before you do the proposal, that you should have a couple of works specific with your idea done ahead of time.
I think that's
Or
good. Um,
okay, or can you
because
do like you can do a proposal and do like an illustration of what you'd like to do, like
yes,
show them a layout.
yes, I'm happy you're bringing that up. Absolutely.
Okay,
It's good. It's good to show things like I was talking about with like with the installation. I've had to send videos to
mm-hmm,
demonstrate. It is good to send, like, if you have a little drawing or a little schematic of this is an installation I've had in my mind and this is how it's going to look and this is how it's going to work. Or
okay,
even if you're like, here's some initial sketches of something, or even a work document too, like a work plan. You can make a work plan. So what that
okay,
I'll speak to that in a second because I don't want to move on too quick, but um yeah, so yeah, when you're sending these little schematics, that's great. And you can label that when you do an image list or wherever they give you space to label, you can say like schematic of parade costume or like whatever you're doing. Um, because that gives them kind of a sneak peek. That way they're seeing like, hey, this person's thinking about how they want to craft this, right? It gives them an idea of how it might come together, and you've got that idea, and that's important. Um,
yeah,
so it's
it's
always
really
good.
really good to try to show them if it's new, it's never been done before, whatever, just to show them your vision,
Absolutely,
a clear
absolutely.
picture of your
Um,
vision.
and I mean, you can also send them like similar work. Like some things are somewhat
Okay,
similar. I'm sure you could. Um, and if you had time to do pieces that, like a few pieces of stuff, even if it's a newer medium to you, it might be a good idea
right.
to do a couple pieces in that medium and send that along.
Okay.
I think that would definitely strengthen a thing that you're doing. I see that Carly has her hand up. Do you have any more questions, Tanya? We can
Nope,
come back
that's
to you.
perfect. Thank
Okay,
you.
no worries. Hi.
So if I'm understanding right, basically the portfolio sort of acts similar to what a cover letter would do for a resume
Kind of,
or
yeah.
something
You're
similar.
talking about like these are the things that I do and the things that I bring to the table. It's even better than a cover letter because they can see what you're doing,
Yeah,
which is super cool. They can actually see your work. So I think yeah,
yeah.
it's like a cover letter. Um, it's
Although you could say an upgraded version of a cover letter
it's like a
in a
visual cover letter.
significant.
It's like a visual cover letter.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you have any other questions?
No.
Okay. Um, there was something we mentioned with Tanya, and I want to go back to that. So I'm just gonna take a second, I need to think. So we're talking about schematics, and then we were talking about a work plan. So, um, I'll mention, it's really nice. It's a great idea to send along like a work plan. So what I mean by a work plan is sometimes I'll take a document and I'll include it as support material. So what I do in that document is I write, um, for 6 months, I'm going to do a series of work. So I'll detail whatever that work is and kind of write out like, how are you going to do it? What mediums you can do? I mean, a lot of that is in your proposal, but you only have so many words. You can always take the opportunity to write stuff down with a bigger word count. And send that along and tell them this is how I'm going to do this project. Here's how I'm planning my time. Uh, this is the different stages of the project so they can get an idea of your process. Um, there's nothing that says that you can't send along more exposition. I mean, you don't have to send a terrible amount of exposition, but having a work plan, I feel strengthens um, the show of work that we're putting out there for these opportunities like grants or artist in residence opportunities or festivals, especially if you're doing creation for a festival. You can detail what you're going to do in the amount of time that you have, so that way they will feel more comfortable with your time frames. I've found it helpful. um, Another thing I'll mention too is, I've not been told not to do this. What I do with my image lists is I'll put down like your typical image list. You put the title of your piece, so like the name of the piece, the date it was created, dimensions. You can put down like the medium. If it's a collaboration, put down that you've collaborated. I have a few pieces that I've collaborated with colleagues on, so we credit our colleagues. Um, I know for me, if it's not an image that I've taken, so like if it's not a photograph that I've taken, it's a photograph that maybe a gallery took or maybe a news reporter took a photograph, I get permission to use the photo and I credit where that photo came from. And I say this photo came from a gallery or like wherever I got it, if it's not my own. But it's that way you can say it's my work in the photo, but the photo's not mine. So I know that's kind of a weird thing to think about. But you can also put, if you want to put a little brief couple of lines in there, like for an image list or like the list of your support material, um, you can kind of write, like, I know I've had a couple pieces that I participated in Quiet Parade a couple years ago. I did costume design, so I also did some hand painted work. So I do send that out sometimes, and where it's kind of a little bit off the beaten path, like I do visual art, but it's costume design, it's textile, but it's also the wings were hand painted with acrylic paint. So I do detail what I want them to look at in that, where it's kind of like this weird mix. Like I'll put down what things are like, uh, and what it is, so that it's not confusing. Because sometimes it's good to give them a little bit of extra context it doesn't have to be a lot. It can just be a couple of quick lines. You can usually tell them exactly what's going on in those lists and things, like the image lists that you might send along. So I do find that helpful. Um, so I'm going to talk about crossing over. Um, that sounds like a strange topic, but it's actually not, and I'm super excited to talk about it. So it is about citing examples in your proposal and how like citing these examples just kind of helps your proposal come alive. It's pretty magical. So when we're dealing with support material, we have our image list that we've filled out nice and tidy, and it's saying what we're sending. And we have stuff, we have our images, our photographs of whatever work we're sending, and we have those all uploaded or attached, however's being sent out. Um, in your proposal, it's really helpful. We're not just sending all this stuff, all this support material because we're sending it. It's not just because they asked for it. Um, we can use that support material um, to help people in our proposals to understand what we're doing. Um, I know it seems like a fairly obvious thing. When I learned about citing examples in proposals, I was super excited. My mind was blown because I hadn't really thought about kind of crossing over and citing an example. I uh, I know it feels like a super obvious thing, but it is so powerful. Um, so connecting your support material to your proposal is key. So it helps make your writing more clear. It actually makes it a lot stronger because not only can you do this for proposals, guys, if you're doing a project, um, maybe you get a grant from Arts NB, maybe you're doing a project where they request that you do a report at the end. You can also cite examples of your support material in your report. So it would be new stuff that you're sending. So it would be the stuff that you've done in a project that you would tell them examples. So you'd be writing so if you're referencing specific things, you can actually connect back and go, well, according to this image, you can just cite the image file, like the file name or the number that it is in the image list. Um, maybe you wrote a poem and you were like, well, in this poem, I talked about community, and in my project, we were doing a lot of stuff to build community. So you could talk about how when you wrote this poem, and your project, what you were thinking about while you were working, building community, and you wrote this poem because you were building community to talk about it. So you can kind of demonstrate things that way, which I find really helpful because that way it's not just tell me, it's show me, right? Like when um, like in film, a lot of times people will say, show me, don't tell me. And I find that very powerful, and I find that keeps coming up. Um, and it is easier sometimes to show people. So this is why citing those examples is so important. Um, and like if it's possible, what you can also do is include links to like images or videos. Um, so um, and if you're including videos, what you can do is you can cite the uh, like the timestamp in the video. So you can say from 10 seconds to 20 seconds in this video. Like you can tell them like from this time frame, please watch this time frame. That way they don't have to watch an hour of video to look for the 10 seconds that you really want them to see. Um, so that is another way to be kind of convenient about it, and to make sure people are seeing what you want them to see, um, in especially if you're sending like a longer video. Um, and I know some projects do have time restraints on video as well, so it's good to keep that in mind. Um, does anyone have any questions on this kind of citing examples and um, how we might like connect our portfolio to like our writing? Do you have any thoughts? Okay. Um, so the next topic I have is, um, and this one's, I felt strange writing this topic, but I'm really glad I included it. Um, is organizing your files, actually. Um, so when we sit down to do these applications, or even just to put together something quick, like if you have to do a presentation and you want to have your portfolio as slides, um, it's good to have your portfolio kind of stored away in a spot that you can find it. Because I know sometimes it's hard to be organized and our files can just be everywhere on the computer because the computer is its own being. um, but it is nice to have a dedicated place for ourselves. Um, so the first tip I'm going to give you with this too is have a copy of your portfolio on Google Drive or Dropbox or OneDrive, whatever cloud solution that you're using. Maybe you're using them all. Um, but whatever cloud solution that you're using, put it on there. Because I know for me, I pull up Google Drive because it works on my phone pretty well, and I can actually show people my portfolio really quickly. Like if someone stops me in the middle of the street and is like, "Jess, I need to see your portfolio," um, I can pull it up on my phone, or if I like make a business contact or something like we're always networking, so it's nice to be able to just pull up these things and be like, talk about. I know especially when we meet other artists, we get talking about our work, so it's nice to be able to pull it up quickly. It's not always easy to find on our Instagram feed or wherever we're putting it up on social media. So it's nice to be able to call up specific pieces quickly. Um, so it also allows you to have a backup, which is nice because computers are a wear and tear item. They sometimes die, so it's good to have a backup, especially if you um, have a lot of pieces, especially older pieces and stuff like that. It's nice to have something outside of your computer to make sure that you don't lose work. Because I know some pieces are ephemeral and they you know, they're gone. I going back to soap sculpture. I've made soap sculpture before, and it's soap, so I've used it. So I don't actually have those sculptures anymore, but I do have the photographs. And that was the point of them, was to show that you can have something really pretty, and that you can use it, and it can, we can still have photos, but it can be used. So that's another thing to think about, especially if your work is very ephemeral, or if you do like a lot of performance work. It's not something you can carry with you. It's something that happened in time, and now time has passed, and we need to have a copy of that performance somewhere. Um, so another thought is to try organizing things by year. So like within your portfolio folder, that's like Jessica's portfolio, we can organize by year. Is what I found helpful for me. Um, so that way, if you're like, yeah, I know I did this in 2023, you can go back to 2023 and know that you worked on an installation. Or you can go back to 2022 and know that you participated in a parade, um, or whatever you're doing. So it kind of makes it quick. It helps you keep your pieces in order. Um, and within the year, what I do is I actually will put my uh, different I put different mediums, but I also will put, if it's a bigger project, I'll give it its own folder. Um, and like I know for Quiet Parade, I have a folder for Quiet Parade, where that was kind of a large project. And I do have a folder for my installation. So that way I can find everything relating to it, especially if it's something that uh maybe is ongoing, or maybe it's a piece, especially with an installation where it's been traveling. You can keep track of it. Uh, so the next part I want to talk about is naming your files. So uh, I know this seems super basic, but it is good to talk about, um, because our phones, sometimes when we take pictures, it gives you a string of information. Usually it has the date and year in it, but it can be weird to parse. So once you get those files, um, I usually take and put my original files in a folder that I try to keep organized in the same way, but I call it original files. So that way I still have my high resolution original stuff if I need to go back to it. And then I make another folder. I put in my portfolio folder or my working on it folder, and I color grade. And so like I edit and I make sure that the colors are nice, and then I rename them. So that way I have a naming scheme. So if I want to search for something really quickly, I can type in the naming scheme that I use. So it could be like your name underscore the date underscore project name, whatever makes sense to you. It needs to make sense to you to find it, but make it easy. That way you can call these files when you need them. And yeah, um, and also if you have like RAWs, if you use camera RAWs, like you probably know what you do with them, but like it is good to try to save like RAW files or high res files and just make sure in case you need to re-edit something or in case your file that you've color graded or anything, the final image that you want to present ends up corrupting itself, you can always go back and have a copy and just make it again or make sure that you don't lose work. Um, so that's kind of a strategy that I use, is to just make sure that I'm organized on my computer, I'm organized on a cloud solution so that I can sit down at grant time and find what I need quickly and feel a lot less stress. And it also makes filling out applications a breeze because that way you're not like having a nightmare about like naming files and finding them and making sure that you edit them and uh, making sure that all these things are in your support material. Because I know putting it together takes a lot of time. So this saves you a lot of time if you know where it is. Because I know it's like trying to it sometimes at proposal time it feels a little bit like cleaning your room. You're trying to find that one thing and you know where you put it uh, on the far reaches of your computer. Um, do you guys have any questions or thoughts on organization? Um, okay, so I want to talk a little bit about budget. So budget is another way to tell your story. And like we were talking about, like Tanya had mentioned about maybe including a schematic drawing, it's really good to include a budget for a project. So even if, they're not asking for a budget, just do one anyway. You're probably going to do one for yourself. You should. And that way you can kind of track your expenses of creation, track your expenses of are you paying yourself? Because we need to pay ourselves. So make a budget. This is the way that you are telling your story through the numbers of your project. It also is great too, because when you're including these budgets, um, what it can do is it lets people know that you're thinking about this project, you're planning it, and they can see that like it's another step that is going to help you finish the project because you know what you're looking for in terms of the financial need of your project. So I find too, making a quick budget for a project actually helps me kind of understand like, am I being realistic with my time frames? Um, is like am I being realistic with time frames for the work that I want to accomplish? Because it can be really easy to think that a project might take uh, a year, but maybe it actually is a 6 month project, or maybe you think a project will take 3 months, but in reality it should take 7.5 just because of the way money runs and the way uh, your costs are going to work and the way that your time works. And I found that time is an interesting. I'm saying it backwards. It's money is a good way to quantify time. It's a strange way of looking at it, but it does give us some clues on how to contextualize these things. Um, if you don't know what to charge or how to bill for your project or like even just your work, look at Carfax. Um, so I'm actually going to put the link in the chat for the 2024 fee schedule. So you guys can check that out if you'd like. So it details so much stuff. This tells you basically like Carfax minimums, how much you can and should be charging for your work, um, and for different facets of your work, and for different facets of projects. Like I know with this residency, I did look at the Carfax fee schedule because I wanted to make sure that um, I was being realistic in how I was producing my budget, and to figure out, especially where I was working on a more long-term scale of 6 months, I wanted to be sure that I had a handle on those costs so that I could figure out how much does it cost to give a presentation, how much does it cost to do different types of consulting and things like that. So it's really, really good. You can also put in your budget, you can actually put Carfax minimum. So if you feel uncomfortable putting a certain number, you can actually put Carfax minimum, and people will see that as well. So if it feels like too much, it can help make you feel more comfortable, which is good. Um, so yeah, make sure, and I know I've mentioned this before, I will say it again because it needs to be said, make sure that you're paying yourself for your time. Um, we need to be paid. We all have bills, and even though we're extremely passionate and we love the work that we do, it is important that, in these projects that we're not just paying ourselves in passion, that we're paying ourselves in a way that is sustainable to do our work. Um, and so just as a final tip, this kind of goes for everything, but it works well for budget as well. When you're doing up a budget and when you're doing up your proposals and things like that, read documentation carefully and see what you can claim as an expense and what you can't. Um, some grants pay sustenance, some festivals pay for creation. It just depends where and whom you're applying to. So just take time and read what they have. And if you're finding it difficult, the great thing about um, the New Brunswick art scene and so much of the art scene throughout Canada is they're so friendly. You can always reach out through email and contact them. You can reach out by phone and contact these different groups. I know Arts NB has speed consulting during throughout the month, so you can take questions that you have with proposals to their speed consulting and they can answer it because Arts NB is the expert on their program, so it's good to talk with program officers there. So, um, don't be afraid to reach out and ask questions to people. Like if you're wanting to do a residency somewhere, or you're wanting to, or there's just a part of a document that doesn't make sense, or maybe it doesn't work, um, reach out to them and ask your questions because that's important and it's okay to do that. Um, and make sure that you're reading the details because they do include a lot of details in a lot of the documentation. So um, I found it really helpful when I'm filling things out, especially if I'm applying to like a bigger project or a bigger opportunity. I actually will pop open documentation while I'm filling it out and read um, and be double checking and make sure that I have my files named properly because some opportunities need certain formats. They need certain nomenclature, like they need a certain naming scheme, um, and just to make sure that you have all the little pieces together, because sometimes it's the little pieces that get away from us, especially when we're really tired, which I know sometimes we can feel tired when we're putting together these types of projects. Um, so that's what I've got for you guys tonight. If you have questions for me, we have time to take questions. We have time to take comments and thoughts if there's anything that you want to share.
Yes, Jessica, just another question about Carfax.
Yeah.
When you said that you can you can reference them to find out about costs of things for your budget,
hmm
is that like a general guideline for everything, or
Um,
do they do specific things?
um, so with Carfax, I'm actually going to take the link and we're going to open it on my screen over here. So I'm going to share my screen. Um, let's see. Okay. Okay. So I don't know if we can see this, but this is the fee schedule for 2024, which we're coming to the end. It looks like they have a fee schedule for 2025 and 2026 and 2027. It's also available in French, which is super cool. So if you need to read it in French, you can. But they talk about the different types of fees that um, you can charge. Um, so it kind of just gives you a ballpark. So like, I'm just gonna click down to presentation fees. So they talk about like solo presentations. Um, they do talk about so they talk about like flat rate per half day under 4 hours. So you can, if you're doing something that's under 4 hours, you're going to be charging. They're saying to charge $500. Um, so and you can read like the context of this as well. I'm not going to read it all because it's a lot of info. But
Yeah.
so they also talk about like media arts and QA screening. So they can talk about. I think that's more for like uh, different types of screening things. There's consultation fees. So you can talk about different types of consultation that you're doing. Maybe you're doing consultation like giving advice to someone um, during a residency or something like that. There's jury fees, so this actually tells this says for intensive jury processes. So sometimes there's some really big stuff that they might be doing. So it talks about how someone on a jury might be paid. So what they mean by that is like a jury of artists reviewing work. Um, they talk about writing and editing fees, which is really cool. Installation fees as well. Um, so I would just click through it and give it a read. It does help. If it's not included in Carfax, what works well too, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. Um, what works well too is asking colleagues, because it's good to try to be the middle. I find like and like it's okay to be the high end and it's fine to be the low end, but I find it's nice to try to charge in the middle because that way you're not undercutting people and you're not overcharging. um so it's hard. I know it's hard for everyone to price their work. um but ask people what they charge. Look at what other people in the community are charging. So if it's not in Carfax, just see what other people charge for their work and maybe talk to them, especially like and like you can even talk to galleries. I'm sure they might talk about how pieces are priced. So that might give you a better idea of pricing. But I do find Carfax fairly useful. And it's nice too if I know, especially with inflation, some of us have had to raise, well, a lot of us have had to raise prices. So um, it's not that we're blaming Carfax or anything like that, but it is okay to have, I use Carfax as justification. I'll say, well, I've had to raise my prices, and Carfax, we have to charge Carfax minimums. Um, because that way, if everyone charges Carfax minimums, it means that you're getting paid um, the minimum of what Carfax has set. Because that's the thing to remember is Carfax fees are a minimum. So it's good to kind of inform ourselves of what these minimums are and stuff too. Because I know it's so easy to not charge properly for work, and it's easy to undercharge, because we love our work and we love when people buy it, but it's important to charge what we're worth, because we need to keep artistry sustainable for us so that we can keep creating for another day. Does that make sense? Did I
Yes,
kind of get
yes, it does.
excellent, excellent.
Yeah, yeah, that's really good, Jessica. Yeah, that explains a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. And don't be afraid to just read the different things for Carfax. They do talk about in the document, like they talk about their guiding principles, um, and like what the professional service fees cover and things like that. So, um, and keep an eye out because Carfax does do presentations and stuff too. So, um, that's also another opportunity to learn a bit more. I love Carfax. I think they're great, because it helps everyone charge what they should, and at least the minimum they should, so that we're all getting paid. Because I think um, that's super important. It's we're all passionate, but passion can only take us so far.
True, true. We should be paid what we're worth.
Yeah, we need
Yeah.
to we need to make sure that, we're able to create for another day, and being paid does that. So,
Mm.
and that way our needs are met. Do we have any other thoughts or questions? I know I covered like a lot of things. Um, so we talked about our audience, we talked about um, like crossing over, so giving examples of your support material. We talked about um, making it make sense. So trying to find that kind of thread of information to include. And I did talk about organization of files, and I talked a little bit about budget. I know I'm just scratching the surface with budget. So I know that's a lot to digest.
It was very good, Jessica.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was very good. I took 3 pages of notes.
Oh, that's excellent. If anyone, guys, if you do want my notes, um, let me know and I will email them to you or get them to you in whatever format you need. Because I'm super happy to share notes.
Okay, does that mean anything like from your previous ones too? Like
Yeah,
if I asked something for specifically? Okay.
yeah. If you want my previous notes, please contact me and I will provide those to you.
All right.
I can send out. I know I don't have slides, but I can send out notes, and I tried to make them in a way that's serviceable if I do have to send them out, so they will make sense.
Okay, great.
Awesome. Um, well, we're about 10 to. So if anyone does have any other thoughts or questions or ideas, please put them out there. Um, I'm going to take a second and talk about some of the stuff that we have upcoming. So we have every Friday, we have community night. So that's at 7 o'clock on Friday. It's held virtually over Zoom. Um, so we talk about all kinds of things actually. We recently were talking about the Cura residency. So that is in St. Andrews. With I think the deadline for that is the 30th, so that's coming up. Um, so we have community night, and I'm putting out an art call as well for um, it's going to be a virtual artist talk in February. I haven't set the date yet. I'm tentatively looking at the 28th of February, and that would be 7 o'clock on a Friday. So that actually would fall on community night, and I intentionally did that. So what I'm looking for is I would like people to tell the story of their art practice and take 3 to 5 pieces of their work that they could share in a presentation and talk about themselves and their work and why they do their work and just 5 to 7 minutes. That would be like a 5 to 7 minute presentation. Um, so if that's an opportunity that is interesting to you, We're doing that. There's going to be more information on the New Brunswick Disability Art Collective page, so that's going to be coming out probably in the beginning of next week. So that would be Monday or Tuesday next week, probably. Once I've kind of firmed up more details, I do have some information posted currently. And our next presentation for the workshop series is going to be the 14th of December. So it's going to be a community discussion. So it's going to be about accessibility in the arts. So if that's something you want to attend, I would like if you could think about, what barriers have you faced as a person with a disability, working as an artist, viewing art. What barriers do you face to doing art and participating in art in communities. So we're going to be talking about that and those barriers and how that affects us and what we think could change going forward. So I'm super excited to facilitate that discussion, and that's going to be on the 14th of December, same time at 7 o'clock. So um, that's what we have upcoming. So thank you all for coming. I do appreciate you coming out to these presentations. I'm super happy to be um, sharing this information with everyone. And I'm super grateful to Charlie for doing our ASL. I really appreciate it. And I'm super grateful for the funding for Arts and B um, for funding this work, because I would not be able to do this work without Arts and B funding. So I'm very, very grateful. So I think that's all for us tonight. I'm gonna stop our recording.